We've talked many times on this show about the continuing battle with weed resistance. Nebraska has 8 weed species that are resistant to at least one group of herbicides and 6 weeds resistant to glyphosate. But as you may have heard if you attended one of last week's soybean management field days, sometimes what you think is resistance isn't always resistance. Purdue University's Fred Whitford says things like water quality, consistent product measurements, and even a sprayer tank's size could be misleading farmers when it comes to adequate weed control.
A lot of us think we're applying full rates. And we apply full rates and we notice that, out here you don't see very many weeds, but you apply full rates and we don't get control. So there's something, they're resistant. Something's wrong. Well, what we're showing the group here today at the field day is a lot of our poly tanks, fiberglass, and steel tanks are mismeasured. So we had one example in here of a farmer who had a 750-gallon tank, and in fact, it was actually, do you remember what it was?
It was 850, I think.
850, very good. So what he did was he mixed up enough chemical for that 750 gallons, but he actually spread it over 850. The tank was mismeasured. We had a Nebraska farmer here this week tell us that one of his 1,600-gallon tank was 375 gallons off. And so the key here is I've got to get that tank down because we based our rates on the volume of the tank.
You said the reasoning is because of how it's made, yes?
That's correct. It's just an art. It's an art making poly tanks.
Okay, so how do we fix this problem?
That's pretty easy. So we talked about some of the guys here doing flow meters to verify how much is in the tank, and then other ones that we kind of pushed was that if you had a sprayer in a tank, I would go to the local ag retailer, I'd weigh it out. I would let's say it's a 1,000-gallon tank. I would add 1,000 gallons of water to it. Water weighs 8.345, and so that's what should be in it. The one that had 100 and whatever it was, 50 gallons more, that's 150 times 8.345 more weight than what I should have had. That's the first signs that my tanks are off. And if my tanks are off, I don't know what I'm doing out in the fields.
Let's move into measurement. What are we doing wrong in measurement?
Measurement is, we believe so much in technology, that our equipment, our machines, everything is perfect, and we don't have to worry about it. It's all mechanical. So what we do know is a number of different things, and we had them here. We don't mix dry material in a fluid ounce cup. Liquid ounces and dry ounces are different. That's the first one. People don't believe it. Well, 16 ounces in a pound, 128 ounces in a gallon. They're different. We talked about these tubes being very inaccurate on the dry tubes, and it says it on the tube. What we'd like the growers to do is to get that plus or minus, and you saw in here up to 25% wrong on these dry tubes. Every tube, 7.5, 10, 15, 25. We don't want to be on average, we want to be correct. So we were pushing the little $50 to $100 scales, so every time a grower goes out here to spray, take care of his crop, he's putting on exactly the right amount. We had problems with some of the growers here taking one dry tube for a product and using that tube to measure all products. Those tubes are specific for the product that you're using. And then lastly, the big push here is these tubes change even for the same product. When you're done with the box, take that tube and adios she goes, because the next box has a tube in it that could have changed. Don't take that tube and keep reusing it, even if it's for the same product.
Finally, water. Why can water affect what you do and how you spray?
Okay, good question. What we talked about, the tank and the measuring are the basics. And that's going to give me a certain level of control of weeds, insects, diseases. What we're trying to do with water is to push that rate that we're controlling up another 5%, 6%, whatever, 10%, I'm making it up. So water has two things: hardness, minerals, calcium, magnesium. Everybody knows if you use glyphosate, you need to add ammonium sulfate. What happens is the calcium and magnesium ties up the glyphosate, it doesn't work. We add ammonium sulfate to keep the Roundup in the water, the glyphosate. So that's water, and then the other one was pH. Most of our chemicals probably prefer to be in the acid under 7, and that's a concept. And if you noticed here, what we did was we had a swimming pool test kit that everybody uses to test swimming pools. You can actually test your water, and you can measure the pH and hardness, and then you can make a determination if you have to clean your water up. And I guess the last big message was there's some products that tell you to add a surfactant to spread it, and there's some products that ask you to add an oil to help penetrate into the leaves. If your label says it, you got to use it. If you're not going to add the adjuvants, oils, surfactants, then don't use the product. Get you another one that doesn't require it, because you're not going to be happy with the performance of that herbicide if you don't do what the manufacturer asks you to do.